God's Word Express.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are continuing our exploration of spiritual boundaries, looking really closely at the work of Pastor Dr. K. Even, specifically from his sermon, Deliverance, Demon's Gate 2.
That's right. Last time was about the foundational rules, but today we're getting into the nitty-gritty, the actual gates that this teaching says can allow spiritual adversaries into a person's life.
And the core idea is just, it's so critical, isn't it? That entry is never just random.
Never. It requires some kind of permission and opening, or, and this is the term we're going to keep coming back to, a legal right.
It reminds me of that analogy from the source, from Frank Hammond, about the mosquito.
Yes.
It doesn't care if the house belongs to a president or a pastor. If a window's open, it's coming in. The source even points to Judas Iscariot as someone who had an adversary enter his heart.
Exactly. It shows that status offers no protection. It's all about maintaining your boundaries. So today our mission is to unpack some of these very specific gates that Dr. K. Even has seen in his ministry.
Okay, let's jump right in. The first set of gates is all about connection, how we bond with other people. And the first concept is, it's called a soul tie, or a connectum in the source.
Right, a soul tie.
Yeah.
And it's defined as this really profound spiritual or emotional bond. We're not talking about, just a casual friend.
So what's the threshold?
Well, the teaching extends it beyond just family or partners. It could even be an intense obsession with someone you've never met, like a K-pop idol.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, covering your walls with their pictures, living and breathing their content. That level of intense, sustained emotional investment is what creates the tie.
The source does ground this in Scripture, though, with examples like David and Jonathan, whose souls were knit together. It's about that level of intensity.
It is. But what's crucial to understand here is that this bond, this tie, it creates a kind of shared jurisdiction, a spiritual bridge, and that allows for transference.
So, if you have that kind of bond with someone, things can pass from them to you.
That's the idea. And the most startling example of this in the source material was about a spirit named rebellion.
Right.
This spirit apparently entered a person, not because they were rebellious themselves, but because they had this incredibly close, intimate friendship with someone who had a really severe anti-authority nature.
So it just jumped across the bridge.
It jumped in, that's the phrase used. The constant closeness, the deep bond, became the conduit.
That's a bit terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, it really raises the stakes on who you form your deepest relationships with.
It does, and that leads us directly to the clearest physical gate of all, sexual relations. The source calls it the one flesh gate.
Right, based on Genesis 2.24. Two become one flesh.
And Pastor K. Even used a really modern analogy for this. He compared it to the European Schengen area.
Ah, okay, no borders.
Exactly. Once that union is established, spiritual travel between those two people is completely borderless.
The implication of that is just staggering. I mean, spirits, curses, generational issues, even physical sickness could be transmitted.
Precisely. And this is where that anecdote about the cancer case comes in. It's a heavy one.
Tell us.
A wife, according to the teaching, developed cancer. The source claims it was because a curse or a spirit tied to her husband's family lineage, where many had died from the same disease, transferred to her.
Wait, but just because they were married?
Well, the source adds a key detail. The transfer happened after she had a big dispute with her mother-in-law.
Ah, so the one flesh union was the highway, but the conflict was the open door that allowed the traffic through.
That's the mechanism. The conflict provided the justification. It's a sobering illustration of the spiritual responsibility that union carries.
And that ties into the next gate, doesn't it? Vows or oaths.
Yes. Not just casual promises, but these really solemn declarations. Things like, I'll never get married again after a bad breakup.
Promising to take a deceased parent's place.
Exactly. According to the source, when you make a vow like that, you are essentially inviting an adversary to be the enforcer of that vow. You create a spiritual contract, and you give them the legal right to hold you to it.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting, moving from these sort of relational gates into deliberate actions.
Yeah.
The most direct one being witchcraft and sorcery. I think the term was Kanhalka.
And this is seen as a direct, formal invitation, a clear violation of spiritual laws. And it works both ways, if you do it or if it's done to you.
What kind of examples did the source give for perpetrating it?
They were very specific, very culturally situated. One example was using unsavory items like a sanitary napkin mixed into food to cast a spell on a spouse.
Wow.
Another was using love spells, and it specifically mentioned na na thong, which is a kind of Thai love charm, to manipulate someone's affection. Doing these things is seen as signing a contract with a manipulating entity.
But what if you're the victim, if someone curses you?
That's where it gets interesting. The source suggests a curse can only fully take hold if you already have a spiritual door open somewhere else in your life.
Like a pre-existing condition?
Exactly. The curse needs a landing pad. It needs a piece of evidence, like a past sin or unforgiveness, to justify its presence.
Okay, let's pivot to something a bit more modern and probably more relatable for a lot of people. Excessive media consumption.
This is a huge one. And it's not about just passively watching something. The key mechanism here is identification.
What do you mean?
I mean, when you're consuming certain content, you're not just being entertained, you're spiritually engaging with it.
Right, there's that case study about the spirit named Criminal that entered a young person who was playing a violent video game.
Yes, and the key detail wasn't just that the game was violent, it was that the game's missions required the player to commit acts of murder and destruction over and over again to win.
So you're investing your will, your focus.
Your energy, your intent. You are repeatedly executing these destructive acts in the game. That sustained focus is what's interpreted as granting the corresponding spirit a legal right to enter.
So it's not just exposure, it's the fascination, the deep immersive identification with the bad guy.
Exactly. And it was the same with the person who got obsessed with sadistic films and apparently acquired a spirit named Murderer. The spirit claimed it got in through the person's continuous fascination with the violence.
It wasn't just on the screen anymore.
No. The source even warned that intense study or reading about Lucifer or dark occult history could be a similar open door. It's about where you are choosing to place your focus and fascination.
Which brings us to the last and maybe most sensitive set of actions in this section. Sexual immorality and fantasy.
Yeah. The source lists masturbation, especially when it's coupled with imagination as a gate, calling it adultery in the heart. But the warnings about interactions in dreams were particularly concerning.
How so?
It's presented as a kind of non-physical union. The teaching warns about regular sexual encounters with spirits in dreams, where climax occurs. They cited this traumatic case from Laos where a woman was apparently harassed by a spirit for 8 years.
That's horrific.
And it's seen as creating this sustained non-physical bond that gives legal access. Then, of course, the use of pornography, sex toys, and bestiality are listed as acts so far outside the natural order that they act as powerful, immediate invitations.
So we've looked at connections, we've looked at actions. Now we need to turn inward.
Right. To the barriers we create ourselves. And the biggest one is hidden sin. The term used is
This all comes down to confession, doesn't it? The source says the sacrifice's blood can't cleanse what's kept in the dark. Why is confession so critical?
because of the legal structure. In this framework, an unconfessed sin is like retained legal evidence. It's a contract that's still valid. As long as you hide it, the adversary has a legal claim to stay.
But once you confess it,
You bring it into the light. And that legal claim is instantly voided. The evidence is thrown out of court.
the anecdote about this was so vivid. The spirit that just wouldn't leave.
Right. Despite all the ministry efforts, it refused to go. Not until the person finally confessed a deeply hidden sin in that specific case, a past abortion.
And once it was confessed,
The adversary was immediately forced out. It had lost its legal shield.
okay, another gate mentioned was a bit strange. Talking to inanimate objects. It sounds like something every kid does.
It does, but the concern here isn't the act itself, but what might be behind it. The teaching suggests you might not be talking to the doll or the mirror. You could be communicating with a spirit entity that has attached itself to that object.
So if a deep emotional dependency forms on that relationship,
It becomes a vulnerability. A spirit can masquerade as the object and form a bond.
now we come to what might be the most complex idea here, which is jurisdiction, operating outside of authority.
Yes. And this is aimed specifically at believers who try to use spiritual power they haven't been given. The source is very precise about the jurisdiction believers do have.
Which is what?
To drive out demons from people and to heal the sick. The authority is over personal affliction.
So where's the line that gets crossed?
When believers try to bind or challenge territorial spirits, the spiritual powers associated with a place, a school, a business, a public shrine.
So you can't just go to a local shrine and command its spirit to leave.
According to this teaching, no, that's overstepping your boundaries. Those entities operate under a different legal structure. And when you abuse your authority like that,
There's a consequence.
a big one, the spiritual adversary gains a legal right. The term used is not to counterattack you directly.
And that's the story of the spirit that looked like a tiger.
Exactly. A person spoke ill of a local shrine, essentially insulting the territorial entity. In doing so, they gave that entity the legal justification to strike back and invade their personal space. It's a huge warning about respecting the rules of engagement.
So when you boil it all down,
Mm.
what's the unifying theme here? From soul ties to video games to hidden sin, it all comes back to the necessity of an open gate, doesn't it?
It does. Some form of permission has to be granted, whether you do it actively, passively, or just through ignorance.
It's all built on this concept of the legal right.
That is the entire framework. Spiritual adversaries, in this view, don't act randomly. They need justification. So actions like confession, obedience, living purely, and staying within your God-given authority. Those are the things that nullify that justification.
It's an incredibly detailed and honestly a very intense rule book for understanding spiritual vulnerability. Thank you for helping us unpack all of this.
It was a necessary deep dive. The legal structure is the key to the whole teaching.
And as we close, we want to leave you with a final thought, one that ties this all back to that core idea of justification. The source mentions that when the adversary harmed Job, it first had to go and request permission, a legal right from God. So considering this pervasive idea of legal right and ownership, how might recognizing the subtle ways you grant ownership of your thoughts,